The British government has taken unprecedented and largely unreported steps to change the education system, dramatically eroding the quality of education in the UK that our children receive by paving the way for corporate influence in British schools, allowing non-qualified people to teach our children, and maintaining a campaign of propaganda, lies and distortions that is nothing more than an attempt to discredit the teaching profession. The government have effectively hidden the true reality of the education system from public view. Welcome to RINF Alternative News. I'm Mick Meaney, and in this report I'm going to speak to a school teacher about the true state of education in the UK, and specifically how the Education Secretary Michael Gove has introduced policies that directly benefit the interests of corporations above the interests of our children, namely through the introduction of free and academy schools. For obvious reasons, fearing professional repercussions, the identity of this school teacher has been hidden. Watch this revealing video in which she describes the reality of education in the UK.
The government is damaging children's education, full stop, by, first of all, not entering into any kind of debate or consultations with teachers about any new policies or any new things that they're implementing, any changes they're making to education. They seem to be failing to recognise that we are the professionals in the classroom and that we know what's best for them, best for the children, and are just not consulting or deliberating with us. And they've made it quite clear that that's the case and that they're not willing to change that in the future. What Gove seems to be going towards is a privatisation of the education system, when you've got about half of all secondary schools in this country who are either now in academy status or in the process of gaining academy status. However, that's not the case for primary schools. There's only a few academy primary schools. So he's looking to privatise, as far as I'm concerned, education. If you have a child who is not 100% pure academic, then the education system will not work for that child. It's always been a case that corporations, in one sense, want to get into schools mainly just to promote products more than anything else. Years ago, I remember that there was a washing up liquid or something company that wanted us to use their product as part of a science experiment. And we may like their idea of the science experiment, but we just have an unbranded product. We don't ever support or promote any kind of product or group. And of course, there are things in the past like electrical equipment that a company, a business may be behind through the backing of the government as some sort of incentive or something. It might be laptops or whatever, computer equipment. And yeah, I'm happy to take that on as long as it's not blatantly then advertising. But how it will be advertising is, for example, Dell Computers had a contract with the government to supply laptops to school, and as far as their advertising went, it was the fact that it was just Dell laptops. But when it's within the classroom setting and you've got lots of other brands of computers, we're not there supporting and saying this is the brand to go to. It's just the fact that schools can't afford to bring them in. However, the problem is with the academies and the free schools. Academy schools are schools that are funded by the local authority. So in other words, they're funded by the taxpayer. That's where they get their funding from. But they're allowed to basically function away from local authority. So they don't have to follow the national curriculum. They don't have to have qualified teachers in the classroom. There's lots of things that they don't have to do. So sometimes on paper it can look quite attractive because they haven't got all those ties for local authority. But the problem is that academies aren't accountable to anyone apart from themselves. So they can do what they want, how they want, when they want. They can pay teachers what they want and have a governing body like any other school would have a governing body. But the governing body doesn't have to be made up with parent representatives, which LA maintained schools would. They can be appointed by their board of directors, and if that happens to be a business or a company, then that's what it can be, so it can be seen to promote their interests above what's best for the children in the classroom. Because they will gain funding, no doubt, from other businesses and companies or whoever has got a vested interest in that school. And the same likewise with the teachers, because they don't have to have qualified teachers. They don't have to have teachers who have got what's called QTS, which is qualified teaching status. They could have anybody, scientists, businessmen, women, could have anybody in school teaching. Higher level teaching assistants are being used as normal teachers to cover classes when the school already had advance warning that the teacher wasn't going to be in. So rather than using a supply teacher who would have qualified teaching status, they'd use a higher level teaching assistant who hasn't. And the reason behind that is that a higher level teaching assistant is far more cheaper to employ than a supply teacher. On the whole, I would say the media are portraying teachers in a negative light. But sometimes I can kind of understand why, in the sense that it's the government that's portraying us in a negative light. The government have a voice, and we don't have a voice. So if the government's portraying us as a negative light, then that's what the media follow suit and do. At the end of the day, it's the minister's voice which seems more important and more influential than ours. So it's very negative. And like I said, every week you can guarantee there'll be a news story saying how schools are failing children in a certain area. And the source for that is either the government or it's Ofsted. So it's either the government or Ofsted every week saying that schools are failing in this area or that area. And of course that's what then makes the newsworthy headlines.
So as we can see, when it comes to the education of our children, the British government are clearly introducing policies that benefit corporations, attempting to ridicule those in the education system that attempt to speak out through a campaign of distortion and lies, attempting to destroy public support for professionals who have dedicated their lives to caring for and educating our children. The treatment of teachers is nothing short of disgusting, and they need our support because for years they have been involved in an uphill battle against the government that is devoted to producing a nation of drone workers who dare not question authority, who dare not challenge the status quo. Now, true education, not only in my view but also in the view of the teachers I've spoken to, revolves around empowering children, teaching them how to think for themselves, how to question, and how to discover their true purpose in life. Ultimately, the vast majority of teachers are fighting for the future of our children. After all, they are the only ones who truly know what policies are being introduced and how those policies have real-world impact on our children. Well, I'm almost out of time for today. For more news that you're not supposed to know, visit RINF.com. I'm Mick Meaney, signing off for RINF Alternative News.